Okay, today I'm going to talk about the NAR, or the National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement, and how it affects buyers, because as you guys know, I give a lot of information for buyers. I'm going to break this down as simply as I can. Traditionally, well, up to now anyway, when you wanted to buy a home, you would be represented by a real estate agent like me, and then the seller was represented by their real estate agent or the listing agent. And as you may imagine, both of us get paid. The thing is, it was normally the seller that paid both agents out of the proceeds of their sale. Well, a couple of buyers, like a year and some change ago, brought a lawsuit saying they didn't think it was fair that the sellers had to pay both sides. So they sued. And a couple of days ago, they pretty much won. The National Association of Realtors decided to settle. So now buyers will be responsible for paying their own agents to represent them. However, and here's the important part, the seller may, if they would like, offer some type of seller concessions that can be used to pay the buyer's broker. So here's how it's going to go for the buyer. First of all, before you even go out and see properties, your real estate agent should, if they're doing it correctly, get you to sign their buyer's agency agreement. This agreement is going to outline everything that the buyer's agent is to do for you, and it's going to outline the commission they are owed upon close of a sale. Depending where you are in the country, it's probably going to be anywhere between 2.5% to 3%, but that amount is negotiable. But for argument's sake, let's say it's 2.5%. So you have the call with your agent, your buyer's agent. The agent explains to you their relationship with you and that they are to be compensated 2.5% of the purchase price of any home that you end up picking. So fine. Then the agent sends you off to a lender to get pre-approved. And let's say you're pre-approved for a $250,000 purchase. You and your agent go out and see the home and you like it, so you want to make an offer. The agent in that offer can ask the seller for 2.5% closing cost concessions to compensate the buyer's broker upon close of escrow. One of two things can happen here. One, the seller agrees. They give you the 2.5% closing cost credit. Your agent will be paid at the table. Everybody's happy. Or the seller disagrees. And let's say they counter you. They say, fine, we'll give you the house for $250, but I ain't paying nothing for your agent. Well, you as the buyer are going to have a choice at this point. You can either say, fine, thanks, but no thanks, and walk away from that deal. Or you can continue on with that deal, but when that deal closes, you are going to be bringing 2.5% in addition to your down payment and closing costs to the closing table. Now, let's go through the mind of a buyer right here. What if you as the buyer really want this house and the seller does not want to give you the closing cost concessions and you end up not wanting to pay that additional amount? Or let's just say you don't have it to pay. Well, that's going to be rough. You may have to back out of that deal. Or you could borrow the money from a family member, of course, take it out of your 401k, this type of thing. But if you've exhausted every darn possibility and you still ain't got that money, well, you know how that goes. It may be rough for you. Now, another strategy is you could offer the seller 2.5% more than what they are asking for, just to ask for the same 2.5% back in seller paid closing costs, seller concessions. That works if the value is there. Or what you may be thinking as a buyer was like, well, screw that. I'm not going to use a buyer's agent. I'm just going to search for houses myself, and then I will call the listing agent to have them represent me. This is your right to do. I am not mad at you, but let me tell you the inherent risk involved. First of all, the listing agent's primary responsibility has to be to their seller. That being said, let's say the house is listed for $250 and you ask the listing agent, well, what should I offer? The only thing they can legally say is list price or higher. Because that listing agent knows intimate details about the seller, he or she cannot share any of them with you, which is why you have a buyer's agent to help you negotiate. Also, you have to understand that the listing agent is under no obligation to show you that property. If the listing agent and the seller have agreed that the listing agent will represent a buyer and a seller, then good, then they can. But a lot of people don't like dual agency. They don't want their agent representing both parties. So if the listing agent and his seller has agreed that he or she will not dually represent you, then that listing agent can't show you that property. And there's no law against that. So you could be in a situation where a buyer's agent won't show you the property because you don't want to pay a commission. A listing agent won't show you that property because you are unrepresented by a buyer's agent and they have agreed not to duly represent. You probably can't just go by yourself because what seller is going to give you the lockbox code to walk your butt into their house when you are unrepresented by an agent? Ain't going to happen. So the moral of this story is if you are purchasing a house, you have to be prepared that you may have to pay anywhere between 2 to 3% more than you would have out of your pocket anyway, last week. These changes go into effect basically mid-July, but don't be surprised if a lot of agents who are informed start all of this right now. Now, as a buyer, here's a way you can try to combat coming out of pocket for that extra money. Have a conversation with your agent up front about the most money that you have that you can bring to a transaction. And you're going to have this conversation right at the beginning of your relationship with the agent. The agent's going to should say if they're good, how much physical money do you have that you can close this deal with? Let's say you say, I got $10,000 max. Okay, fine. So if that was my client, I'm going to try to work it out that come hell or high water, whatever a home I find for my client, I'm going to try to get them with a lender that has down payment assistance program. I'm going to try to negotiate as much as I can with the seller so we can still get you this house for no more than 10 grand. And not to toot my own horn, but the last 4 buyers I closed with, all at 250, all the way up to 300 and something grand, none of them needed any money at the table actually, because I negotiated a good amount of closing costs, which is still going to happen. So for buyers, I don't want you to freak out. Yes, it is possible that you may need a little more money to buy a house. And by a little, I mean 2.5 to 3%. But it won't mean that you definitely will. This is all going to come down to the agent you choose and the negotiation skills that agent has. So I hope this explained a little bit more for you. More changes to come. This still has to be ratified by the judge and agreed upon. So don't be surprised if this gets tweaked a little bit in the coming weeks. And if and when it does, I will keep you informed to the best of my ability. And personally, unpopular opinion for a buyer's agent, but I don't disagree with the lawsuit. Was it fair that the sellers had to pay both sides? Probably not. Even though they were technically never required to pay both sides, but traditionally they did. So if you're looking to buy a home anywhere in the United States, single family all the way up to a 4-unit or whatever the heck it is you want to buy, commercial, farms, click the link in my bio and fill out the form that says I want to be pre-approved. I will get you with a lender that has these amazing programs with all this down payment assistance I'm always talking about. After you are pre-approved, I will get you with a realtor in your neck of the woods to help you find properties. So what the heck are you waiting for? Get out there and go do it.